So we all know this is an off season for the Sixers to go ahead and get creative, and today we'll discuss a circulating NBA trade rumor and talk about whether the Sixers should be interested or not. Let's break it all down. Perfect. What is going on, everybody? RB here. Welcome into Philly Take with RB. Like always, if you do enjoy this content, feel free to leave a like at the end, as it helps push this content around. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're new and be sure to ring that bell so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos or live streams. A lot coming your way. Just as a quick reminder, before we jump into this, we will be dropping parts 3 to 5 of the free agency special within the coming week. We already dropped parts 1 and 2. Be sure to check those out. Breaking down the top free agent targets at point guard and shooting guard, and we'll keep going down the line, in terms of realistic free agency targets, based on what we expect to happen this offseason, and we'll be talking about it all. And also next week, we'll have a ton of draft coverage all the way leading up to the NBA draft. We'll see if the Sixers stay at pick 23. So make sure those notifications are on. You do not want to miss any of the content. But anyway, getting back into today and what we need to discuss. It's an interesting offseason for the Sixers. Not a lot of flexibility at the current time. I know a lot of people have been reminding me of that. At the end of the day, though, it is still the first week of June, or getting right into the second week, actually. And the Sixers, I believe, are going to end up making some pretty big moves. I think they have to. And I think as the season winds down, the finals get over, and we get towards the draft in a couple weeks, I think things are going to really heat up. A lot of rumors. And speaking of which, an NBA rumor, not directly tied to the Sixers, but we'll talk about how this could relate. This coming out yesterday. According to the NBA Central Twitter page, per HP Basketball, Will Barton and Monte Morris are believed to be available in trade talks to Denver Nuggets. And I've heard whispers about the Denver Nuggets in general. Obviously, I don't cover or talk about that team, day in, day out. But when I think back and I look at where the Denver Nuggets are headed towards the future, obviously Jamal Murray being out this year, Michael Porter Jr., there is a lot of uncertainty there. And to have a guy like Jokic, Nuggets fans seem to want different kinds of players around him, and maybe another big star, right? Another player that they could try to draw in, or just even a better supporting cast. And it kind of seems like they can't get over that hump, right? They're kind of in the same boat as a lot of other teams, just like the Sixers. They need to try something different. And of course, they're going to have to expend some of their role players, as they have a lot of money allocated to Jokic and Jamal Murray and even Michael Porter Jr., who they paid before this season. But where does that leave us? Well, I was reading some of the replies. I was listening to some of the whispers, some of the writers, what they had to say. And apparently, and I've heard this all season, but the Denver Nuggets apparently love Matisse Thybulle for some reason. And where the Sixers fans stand on him right now. Some people are still in. I have always loved Matisse Thybulle. I'm not really as high on him as I previously was. And I do think he could be tradable this summer. And we definitely heard whispers from that, especially the Newbeck article that we talked about a couple weeks ago. But where that leaves us, a lot of people are talking about Philadelphia 76ers as looking into these trade targets. And I'm going to sit up here and tell you why I believe they should, or at least inquire about them. Now, before we discuss that, shout out to my guy Harrison on Twitter. Definitely go follow him. We've had him on the show before, Harrison_Grim on Twitter. He replied to this thread as a lot of interest was being drawn from Sixers fans, and here's what he had to say. A lot of people on here like the idea of Thybulle to Denver, a few packages that can work financially. One, Korkmaz and Thybulle for Monte Morris. The second one, Danny Green, if Sixers decide to guarantee the contract, which has to happen by July 1st, and Matisse Thybulle for Will Barton. And the third one, he says we could deal Tobias Harris first to then free up space to acquire Will Barton. Now, I think all these are definitely interesting ideas. When I look at Will Barton, a guy that's about to be 32 this season. He averaged almost 15 points a game last year for the Nuggets. He can play in your starting unit, come off the bench. He can knock down from deep. I think he's a career 36% shooter from three, 36.5% last year, 38% the year before. Little back and forth, sometimes a bit of a streaky shooter, but he does have a couple of those games as well where he steps it up to another level, right? 25, 30 points. I think he had a 31-point game this last year. And he's not just your typical, wing. He's a guy that can come in. He can also put the ball on the floor. When I say your typical wing, I mean in terms of what the Sixers have kind of thrown out there at the forward position for the last couple years and maybe even like 5-6 years, right? The Robert Covingtons, the Danny Greens. The Sixers have tried to throw out players that really are shooters in space, right, and can defend. Will Barton can do that. He can knock down some shots. He can also hold his own on the defensive end, even though he's getting a little bit older and, his feet don't shuffle as quickly nowadays. But I do think he can hold his own. But really, he adds another element as well by being able to put the ball on the floor. I think he would be a very good leader in the locker room, right? A vet coming in. And obviously, with the whole Danny Green situation, things are definitely uncertain. I don't think the Sixers will pick up that option. And it would be nice to have another vet come in here, right? A guy that some of the other players could lean on. And I think Will Barton definitely needs a change of scenery. I don't know how long he's been in Denver. I think it's been like 6-7 years, but it's time. It's time for Will Barton to move on from Denver. And something I think would work out really well if we were able to maneuver a trade here is that Will Barton, he's owed $14 million next year, which definitely is significant for a role player like that. But it's only a 1-year deal. So if it doesn't work, definitely something you can move on from after. And I just like all of that coming together. And I'm, when I think about Will Barton, he's not like a top of the list type of guy, but definitely a guy I would inquire about and keep him on, my trade target list for this offseason as it continues to expand and grow. In terms of the first trade, Thybulle and Korkmaz, it almost works out perfectly. Thybulle, a $4.5 million contract for this year. Obviously, he's going to be looking for an extension. Maybe the Sixers look at the future and don't want to end up giving that to him, so maybe he does it in Denver. That they're not really a high-quality defensive team, and they, for some reason, really value Matisse Thybulle. Maybe they just like to oppose Sixers fans in every category nowadays. But, I've heard a lot of whispers saying that they do have interest in Matisse Thybulle, and it would definitely be an interesting, move there. And maybe, like I said, maybe the Sixers just don't view him as getting better and not working on that shot as quickly as we may need it to. So maybe bring a guy in like Will Barton who can do a little bit of everything. He can either be in your starting lineup or bring him off the bench. And I think it would definitely be something to look into, and getting that Korkmaz contract off as well, I think would help this team in the long term. And then also looking at Monte Morris, who will be 27 in a couple weeks, and he's a guy that put up 10+ a game last year. He did end up starting for the Denver Nuggets. Now he has 2 years left on his current deal, not making too much, just below $10 million. Another contract that you could play around with, and I think he would be a guy who could come in and bring a little bit of a spark, maybe off the bench for the Philadelphia 76ers. Once again, lines up with some of these contracts we may be trying to move, right? You think about the Shake Miltons, the Thybulles, the Korkmazes, they just have not been consistent. Maybe you go out and get a couple players that may need a change of scenery, who could come in and be spark plugs for this team. But hey, overall, looking at this deal, like I said, not top of the target list type of guys for me, but, definitely players I would inquire about. Keep your eyes open, keep them, intrigued, because I do think the Sixers and the Nuggets are in a similar boat, and I think they have, same kinds of pieces that they may be trying to move. This isn't like an over-the-top move. It would just be something to, switch things up a little bit, if you may. And Monte Morris is almost a 40% three-point shooter, a guy who can distribute a little bit as well, put it on the floor a little bit. Will Barton also, is more athletic than a lot of the players we have on his team. And like I said, I would like him coming in, trying to take over that Danny Green role, but maybe even bringing a little more of a dynamic offensive player than Danny Green is, a guy who may be a little bit quicker as well. So at the end of the day, definitely something to be intrigued about. I actually made a video about 1.5 years ago at the trade deadline when there were whispers about Will Barton. I liked him back then. He's fell off a little bit, right? He's, like I said, he's streaky, but if I had to look at these two players, I think that the Denver Nuggets would try to part with Will Barton before they parted with Monte Morris, just given a little bit of the upside potential, and given where they're at in their career. But if I'm Daryl Morey, like I said, I'm making the call. I'm thinking about it. I'm looking, towards the future. I don't think I would do a straight swap. I do think if I'm the Sixers, I would try to acquire some draft compensation as well, because I don't want to give Thybulle up for 1 year of an aging vet who may not, pan out. And then what did you give him up for, right? If he can develop that shot. So definitely something to think about, but definitely a bargaining chip as well. And, we'll wait and see. Maybe this comes up a little bit in a few weeks. Maybe these rumors are not valid at all. Who knows? But I do think both of these teams are in an interesting position, and it'll be interesting to see if they could eventually work something out. But with that being said, you give me your thoughts down below. Would you be interested in either one of these players? Give me your thoughts down below in the comments section. Like always, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and like always, I will catch you on the next one, man. Peace.
Perfect. Perfect. Perfect.